All right, you beautiful, beautiful people. This is Aaron the Pedantic. I haven't done a stream in like 2 days. Wow, 2 whole days. And why that's astonishing to me is because I have had something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. And then some people beat me to it, those sons of bitches. So Venture Satanis made a video. And of course, Venture being the bro of mine that he is, I have to comment on it at least somewhat. The video was about bringing new people into the OSR. And this is something that I'm greatly passionate about, and for good reason, because after all, I was brought into the OSR. You know, I was not someone who had the nostalgia, the experience, or anything like that. And then I went back into it. No. I'm somebody who started brand new, modern role-playing game guy, and fell in love with the OSR. So what I want to talk about is how to perhaps have a little bit more success with doing this. I'm going to have to do this kind of quick because my wife is going to be home soon. So the first thing that I want to talk about, the first thing that I think we really should push for the new school people is this: return on investment. Now, the reason I say that is because if you look at the price points for most RPGs out there and most RPG content, if it's mainstream, if it's commonly sold in the friendly local gaming store, it's going to be a little bit high, at least compared to what we have to offer in the old school Renaissance. Is it going to have free PDFs? Probably not. Probably not. Now, actually, I can almost guarantee maybe it will have a free PDF for a quick start guide or something like that. But even then, it's missing most of the system. It's missing most of the good parts, and it usually doesn't tell you how to create characters. It's usually focused on really just, this will get you through a session, maybe two. Maybe you could run a campaign with this character. Probably not, depending on what kind of system it is. So the return on investment is usually fairly low on those kinds of games, in my opinion, especially when you put those side by side with what you get in the OSR. So this is something that I would push very strongly. If you go to Tenkar's Tavern, you can find an entire list of old school Renaissance RPGs that have absolutely no cost to get into it. All you have to do is go to the website and download. Just download the PDF. And usually you can get a fairly inexpensive game. Even then, if you look at Basic Fantasy RPG, I actually just ordered 3 books today. And you know what? It costs less than $13 on Amazon. That is the kind of thing that you can really let people know, hey, you're not going to be spending a lot of money getting into this. You may not have to spend any money at all, because I don't expect you to know the system in and out usually. So, some people do expect that. I don't, but some people do. And I think that will greatly change the way that they're looking at the investment of time, perhaps. Time is another thing that I should get into. I'll get into that in a minute. But for the most part, money. Money is usually the big one, because at this point, if they are already a gamer, they've probably invested at least $100. $100 is usually minimum. They've done about $50 for a gaming book. They've done some for minis, for several sets of dice, for journals, and usually if they're players, then they've done a lot of little, I'm going to buy this knick-knack and that knick-knack, because they enjoy expressing themselves as part of the hobby. Well, if you can just show them, just say, look, for the price of, just like a few of your minis there, you can have an entire new game. And guess what else? You don't have to learn a whole lot. That's another huge thing. You don't have to learn a whole lot for a lot of this, especially if they've played 5th edition D&D, then they don't have to learn much. Like I said, I started with 5e, then I went to Dungeon Crawl Classics. My transition from 5e to Dungeon Crawl Classics, very, very, very minimal. It did not take much. It took more of an adjustment of perspective, what exactly I was expecting from the game, than it did for me to adjust to mechanics, especially as a player. And most of the time, whenever we're trying to loop people into the OSR, we want them to be our players, don't we? Sometimes you're just trying to get more people running games, but usually, in my experience, you usually want them to be a player. So the fact that there is something that is inexpensive and familiar, but will still be able to target the kinds of things that they're wanting to do is an enormous selling point. We have games in the OSR that can do the kinds of stuff that you could do with Call of Cthulhu. The kinds of stuff that you could do. Now, I'm not going to say that system doesn't matter. So people will be saying, well, Aaron, I can do this better with the Modifius 2D20 Conan whenever I want to try and have the very cinematic combat moments and stuff like that. That may be true. But at the same time, I can guarantee you that you can come at least very close with an OSR game. I'm not trying to dissuade people from getting into that. I'd actually love for more people to get into that stuff too. So don't misunderstand me. But what I'm trying to say is that with a lot of these people that they think that all that's really out there are the big names with the big expensive books, the high budget, everything. We need to show them that they're wrong. Or at least we don't need, okay? Let me rephrase that. We don't need. I would like to prove that they are wrong and get them interested in what we have to offer. And there's a reason for that. Because our play style is awesome. Our play style is awesome. And here's the thing. We have people that are out there that are constantly attacking us. When I say us, I mean people in the OSR. They're constantly attacking us, whether they're talking about old school Renaissance or old school revival. Either way, there are people out there that are saying either fuck them guys because they are terrible people, or fuck their games because their games suck. And the reason they say that they suck is because they're overcomplicated or something of that nature. And to them, we have to say, fuck you, you're wrong. And we can prove you're wrong. So playstyle, in my opinion, is something that we can really try and win back narrative-wise from all of these people that are pushing that. Now, when I say narrative-wise, I'm not talking about game narrative. I'm talking about meta-narrative, people that are trying to push that. For instance, all we do is just roll dice, and our characters have zero personality. We have no commitment to exploring issues or things in the game world. All we do is we just raid tombs. And that isn't always the case, and it wasn't the case whenever I got into it. I will say that I enjoy doing that, and that's what I do every Monday. And it's a damn good time. However, the fact that they are slandering, in a way, what we do by presenting it in such a two-dimensional perspective is something that needs to be pushed back on, in my opinion. We need to stand up to that bullshit and say, no, yes, there are people that do play like that in the OSR. And you know what? You're not going to find them playing like that in new school stuff very often, unless they have old school tastes. However, there are people that run old school games, system-wise, old school system-wise games, who are engaging in the same kind of stuff that they would engage in with other systems. Does that mean that they're not OSR? People will argue, perhaps. To me, if you're using an OSR system, as long I'm setting myself up, because there are some times that I would say that's not very old school, but it is OSR, perhaps Renaissance. So what I mean by that is you can have people that are saying you should play Mage the Ascension, and I can say, well, I've got this one right here. I just knocked a bunch of books over. I got this right here. I don't need Mage the Ascension. I've got something better. I got something that you, as a brand new player, can come to my table, and I can say, all right, let's make a character real quick, and I can explain the general context of the world, and we can start playing. And you don't have to learn jack shit, really. Not really. You just have to think in terms of this world. That's all you really have to do. The mechanics are something that we'll worry about as we go along, and you're not even having to spend that much money to get into it. So that is where we can pull them. And then once they get into that thought process, then we can say, now, yes, there are games where we focus primarily on dungeon delves and stuff like that. You want to give it a try? It's just like that system, but the only difference is, and then we pull out something something else, perhaps something like Basic Fantasy RPG, something in that case that would be very easy for them to pick up because it's D20 plus modifier, because it's ascending armor class, stuff like that. See how that goes. If they're interested in the fantasy stuff, and then from there, the world's your oyster. Once they have gotten a taste for BX or something like that, maybe then they'll have a little bit of interest in AD&D. It's like, oh, now I'm seeing how all these things that are in these rules that seemed real complex, they're really not that bad. It's just they add a little bit more implications for how things have to go. They have to make me think deeper than I've really had to think, whenever I'm playing my character. It's always been, I have to think dramatically and all those kinds of things, and not I have to think tactically in order to survive. And then you can start drawing them into that kind of thing. I'll go over comments in just a second. I'll try and squeeze a few in. The last thing is that it's against the mainstream. And what I mean by that is that you will not find a lot of the themes that you're going to go through in a lot of the main RPG stuff, usually. Especially if we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. You're not going to find it. They are sanitizing everything in order to make sure that it's appropriate for as many people as possible. And here you can say, look, we could play Ravenloft, we could play 5e Ravenloft, where really it's just a theme park ride, and it just has the whole idea that, yeah, we're playing as whatever. And I'm not hating on 5th edition right now, just so we know, just so we're clear. We could do that, or we could play this instead, something that is really tuned into Gothic horror, something that is more built for such a thing. We could go into maybe some Ghastly Affair is one that just comes off the top of my head. You could go into Morkborg. You could go into Best Left Buried. There are just all kinds of games where you can go into that real grisly shit. You could, of course, I already mentioned Invisible College. Yeah, you can probably do something with Mage of the Ascension. I'm not going to pretend to know anything about Mage of the Ascension, really, aside from just real basic stuff. But I mean, do you think you're going to find something like this? Do you think you're going to find something like this in the mainstream stuff? No, because it's too risky from a business sense for them to do stuff like that. So you can find whatever it is that really interests them. And if it's not out there, you can serve that need. That's what I would try to suggest. The cheaper, the better, usually, because on their end. So, I mean, if you can get free PDFs, bam, there you go. Now, drawbacks. Drawbacks are going to be that they're going to be spoiled. They are going to be spoiled. I cannot stress how fortunate they are. And I started this way. Whenever I started gaming, if I wanted to roll up a character, you know what I did? I went on D&D Beyond. It did it for me. All I had to do is select some stuff. I could not mess up because of the way that it held my hand. Even with Dungeon Crawl Classics, you have that opportunity. Now, when it comes to old school games, OSE, all that kind of stuff, sometimes you can find random generators. But whenever you're trying to build a character, it's a little bit slimmer. If anybody has some that they know of and they want to, go on my Discord and send it to me in a private message, because I was just realizing that you won't be able to put it in the comment section. It'll refuse them. But go ahead and do that, and I'll try to put them in the description so that maybe we can compile a list of different generators, because that's one of the things that really makes a big deal to them. But even if you just sit down with them and say, all right, let's do it together, then that is going to help them immensely. Believe it or not, rolling up a character like from the book can be kind of daunting from a brand new player. You may not remember that. I remember that because for me, that was 4 years ago or something like that, where I was like, oh, okay, that's a long list of things I have to do. So, whatever you have in that capacity, a Dungeon Crawl Classics is probably an easy transition because it's a very similar system to 5e. Same thing with Basic Fantasy. I would seriously lean into Basic Fantasy RPG. Like I said, I'm looking forward to getting my hard copies coming in, but it's cool stuff. And if you can find tools to help them feel more comfortable, then it's a good thing. It will make them more prone to seeing what this stuff has to offer. Let's see some comments real quick. I might pop off. Oh, there's not a whole lot. All right. Doof says, what's poppin'? Michael says, I thought you said poopin'. Hello, all. Labyrinth Lord. That's the real deal. Labyrinth Lord is one that I have not spent that much time with, and I will tell you why. I downloaded it whenever I first started getting into OSR stuff because I saw that it had free rules, and I was very interested in seeing what they had to offer. And then I found out that Lamentations had free rules, and Lamentations appealed to me on that non-mainstream level, where I know that there is a lot of graphic art in there, and that kind of had shock stuff. There's a lot of shock art in there, which I thought was kind of funny. I was like, okay, well, what's the deal with this? But more importantly, I saw that there was a lot of attitude, and the tone was meant to be dark and all those kinds of things. And yet people talked about how incredible the house rules were that were incorporated into it, boiling down the skill system into pure D6s, for instance, making it so that the thief is a class that can choose what skills they would like to increase without being a 3rd edition nightmare, basically. All that kind of stuff. Aaron, we need to have a serious discussion about how to bring people to the OSR. Well, here's the thing. So I put a link on the Discord, and then my wife was like, hey, I'm going to go get food. You want something? And I'm like, I do, but it's going to be cold whenever I finish if I do a long stream. So OSE is pretty easy, light character generation. It really is, but you'll be surprised what things will mystify people. You really would. So I would, I know that there's a Lamentations character generator that you can bring online. It's not even a random one. It's one that you can intentionally, all right, this is what I rolled. You can roll it up. You can make the choices. You can pick spells. You can do your equipment. And then at the end of it, populate it with a character sheet. You can do all of that inside of it. You can actually use it to track the character. I can't remember what the link is, but I know I have it somewhere. Let's say, first step, dispel the myths that the new players may have about old school games. Descending armor class is hard. We're old racist because orcs are evil, etc. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I was mostly focusing on the old mechanics are hard thing. They're just different. They're really just different. And I will say something semi-controversial. THAC0 is something that I tolerate and I think is kind of fun because I like the extra math for some reason. And I like the Matrix, but at the same time, I see ascending armor class is the more logical improvement. That's just me. It is a controversial take. It is going to make people mad, but at the same time, it is not the big, terrible thing that people make it out to be. So that is my big thing about descending armor class. As far as the orcs are evil thing, not even everybody in the OSR plays with orcs being explicitly evil. I don't usually necessarily, unless I want to do a law versus chaos thing and I want to incorporate all of that stuff in there and I want to have that real old school vibe. But you can just as easily play an old school style game and say, well, I'm going to do this a little bit different. There's really nothing wrong with that. There are certain things, certain principles that perhaps I wouldn't abandon, but that one is just one of them where I'm like, is it necessary? Like if you get rid of that kind of stuff, then is it still D&D, early D&D? Possibly not. You could go back to the fact that in the OD&D manual, you have that orcs could be neutral or chaotic. That's Gary Gygax put it in there. It's fucking in there. He clearly changed his mind with first edition, but it is in there. So they can't be good though. They can't be good. Well, they can't be lawful, I should say. They can't be lawful. So that's a whole nother conversation though. Saying what is early D&D is not the same as saying what is old school necessarily. If you're talking about play style. Let's say Lamentations. Labyrinth Lord is not about innovation, but it is a complete product and all it takes to step further, which is awesome. I think that, especially because it's free. It's fucking free. So it's really hard to not just be like, look at this motherfucker. Here it is. Just try it. Yeah. I don't think Old School Essentials is free. So Old School Essentials, you can get the basic rules for PDF for free. However, that does not include a lot of the referee trimmings, as far as I recall. So, a little bit of buy-in for the DM, not so much for the player. So that's nice. The complete experience is better than Lamentations, easier, more linear. Teenagers love it, by the way. And I will admit, so Lamentations, to me, commits a bit of a, and here it is. I love Lamentations. So when I criticize it, it's with love. It has a completely different armor class system. It's not, it is ascending, but it starts at 12, and you have less increases on the characters that are not fighter as for how they are more able to hit things. But that doesn't account for Old School monster design. It doesn't account for that, and there is no Lamentations bestiary. To me, I think that I know that adventures, that's really like the big ticket item, but the Lamentations bestiary to me would be the really cool idea. I think that would be fantastic. That would give people all kinds of metal, metal, like early modern demonic bullshit, crazy monsters that you could put in there that would actually fit the design a little bit better, because otherwise your fighters hit it and very little else, So once you get into the higher hit die anyway. So that is one thing I will knock Lamentations on. Okay, descending armor class is easy. Just treat THAC0 as a target number and target AC as a bonus to the attack roll. Done. Yeah, that's true, but it mystifies people. Like whenever people tried to explain the math to me, and I can't, and I'm a guy who's usually good at stuff like this. I'm good with technical manuals. I'm good at math. Then I tended to get it mixed up a little bit. I'd be like, hey, do you subtract that from that, or is it that from that? And then, that kind of thing. It's so simple. It really is so simple. But for some reason, it just it really screwed with my head. And if it screwed with my head, I know it's going to screw with other people's too. I'd love to have THAC0 in my homebrew system, but my players would murder me for adding more math. Well, just make a matrix. Just make a matrix and have it on the other side of your DM screen. No, they're not going to be able to read that. Print them all out a little matrix. Just give them all a little matrix, and find whatever table they're going to be and tape it on there. I don't know. OSR mechanics don't allow as much character min-max, which is a primary interest of modern players. How do we change that? So you can see game. All right. So you're not going to be able to change people wanting to experience that kind of customization. That kind of system mastery equals, but here's the thing. We just cannot. There are some games that make it more tolerable so that, so from what I've heard, and this is speculation, rumor, etc. Shadow the Demon Lord apparently does a really good job of making it where they can do their customized mechanic stuff and not have it be so frustrating on our end, because it doesn't make the game where they're just going to live through almost everything. It's a nice medium ground, perhaps. So maybe you look for a medium ground system, or maybe you just really try hard to get them to buy into the world you're presenting. Even then, the fact of the matter is, if that's the avenue of play that they enjoy, there's nothing really you can do to change that. That is just their preference. And for them, there's nothing we can do for them. The most that we can do is we can say, we're not assholes. Stop saying bad shit about us. That's the best thing that we can say for people that have that kind of interest, and one that we're not able to serve necessarily. Because the truth is that for a lot of us, if we were to introduce the things to make them more appeased in that capacity, we would make ourselves less appeased. We would find ourselves being put in a position where, now we're having the same problems that we had in the other games to begin with, and we don't want that. So it's tough, man. It's tough. I don't know. Maybe if you want to see if maybe they're just set on that, but they don't know any better, which I know it sounds very fucked up, but if you haven't experienced something else, then you can't be sure that you don't like it. Then maybe you say, okay, we're going to roll 46 or three. We're going to roll straight down the line, but you're still going to get your 3d6 in a row or whatever. And then we're going to just say, just put some restrictions in place. Make it where they can see that, oh, yeah, there's these restrictions in place, but it's not ruining my game. And now I'm spending time trying to focus on these other things. Try that out. Maybe that'll help. Maybe not. It's hard to say. But what's interesting is that a lot of them, they will want this kind of stuff, but whenever you bring them on to Call of Cthulhu or something like that, they're like, oh, okay. So because they get to customize the narrative of their character. And I think that may be a hard pill for them to swallow whenever the narrative of their character really doesn't matter as much in old school play. And the mechanical aspect doesn't really matter as much either. I think that maybe that is very difficult for them because they want to do a lot of the fun before they even get to the table. And they want to do a lot of the fun between the games and stuff like that, as far as their thoughts on what their character's thinking and feeling and all that kind of stuff. So maybe start engaging them more on a, I hate to say it, I don't mean it this way, but it's the only word that's in my head, a narrative aspect, perhaps. But that's still not even the appropriate way to say it. A character aspect. For absolute newbies, letting them pick from a selection of pregens seems to work well. Then they can make their own character after playing a session or two. I highly, highly believe in that, yes. I mean, if you just have a character sheet in front of you and you're like, okay, those are the things that the game says I can do. And unfortunately, because if they're brand absolute newbies, they're not going to completely realize, oh, I can do anything, except for a very certain group of people. There's a certain group of people that's just how their brain works. They don't think in terms of restrictions. They think of in terms of creative problem solving. And because of that, they're going to say, if they really get the fact that this is not just a board game, they're going to get that they can just decide to try things and that it can work, especially if you explain it well. Prison Mike says, don't drop the soap. Don't drop the soap. I think that's good advice. I don't like to have to pick it up. Okay. Agree on pregens. Get characters in the game without the tedious or confusing step of character creation. Yeah, it can be tedious. It can be confusing. And sometimes it can be a very integral part to certain games that are not OSR. For a lot of OSR games, we're just like, roll it up, get started. We'll figure it out as we go. Thaco has no more arithmetic than ascending armor class. With ascending armor class, the AC is a target number, and the attack bonus is added to the roll with Thaco. Yeah, but here's the thing. So whenever you are, I'm not prepared for this argument right now. I'm not prepared for this argument. Okay. Yeah, I'm not prepared for I haven't slept very much lately, so I can't do it. I can't do a Thaco argument right now. Somebody else is going to have to take that one on. Maybe you're right, John. Maybe you're right, but I feel like there's at least one more step involved. I just can't think right now. And it's been a couple days since I've done Descending. It's actually been a couple weeks now. I haven't played second edition in a while. Castles and Crusades is my jam. I prefer the ascending armor class, easier for newbies to understand, but we need to invite people to our OSR games if we want to expand or grow. Yes, that is true. That is true. It's because regardless how easy or hard it is, that Thaco is unintuitive. So yeah, somebody else can go into that. Smack that like button. I have to have other people make me say it because I'm not going to say it otherwise. Thaco minus die roll equals AC hit. I think subtraction is just less intuitive to them than addition. I think that's just true. Me, I've always been able to do instant math in my head for most things, not like genius level or anything like that, but basic multiplication, subtraction, fractions and stuff. Usually I can do it pretty quickly. The problem with the descending AC is +1 is not always good and -1 is not always bad. It's really only the legit criticism. Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, so whenever I tell people they have a penalty to their armor class, and I have to say, well, it went up. Yeah, sometimes that can be a whole thing. Subtraction is harder than single digit addition, so adding AC to 1d20 and comparing to THAC0 is probably simpler than subtracting die roll from THAC0, which can involve two-digit subtraction. And there is the point that if you're using OD&D stuff, that there's actually like 3 levels of rolling a 20 that it doesn't. You're still not gonna. It doesn't bump up one, so it doesn't exactly work with that old stuff. But okay. Invite reads, do you want to be challenged? Do you want a real risk in your games? Come experience the originator, the innovator, the granddaddy of them all, old school gaming. Yeah, that would, it would pull me. But, the fact of the matter is that we have to look at it from a two-pronged assault, or rather 2 different battlefields. We have the battlefield of the old school play, and we have the battlefield of the old school Renaissance. And I feel like we'll probably have more luck getting people into the Renaissance side than we will the other side. Just because of the fact that for a lot of them, they've just heard nothing but slander about how we play, about how fun it is, about all that kind of stuff. And, that's it runs deep. They have to have somebody that they trust and really, really respect to tell them, it's not like that. Look, it's really very engaging. It's very fulfilling. We have a great time. No, it's not quite the same as the stuff that you're already doing. Your character is probably going to die in some very stupid way, and it's going to be hilarious, and we're going to have a great time. But that's not going to draw. It's not going to draw everybody. So. Most OSR is not about min-maxing. It's a different type of game. In OD&D, the referee rolls up the character, not the player. 3d6 in order for abilities, plus 3d6 times 10 for GP. Yeah, that is very true. Most OSR is not I haven't really seen any OSR that is about min-maxing. It's really just, if it has anything in that variety, they usually try to go out of their way to make sure it's not ridiculous. Like even Machinations of the Space Princess has the ability that you can create your own alien races based off of all these different little things that these traits from different races you can pick up and compile your own alien race. And you get a class, and with a class, you have even the fighter has maneuvers and things like that. They can learn the spell, everybody gets a bunch of skills. There's a skill system and everything. But you know what? It doesn't feel like any of that min-max stuff at all. It works out very well. It's not, like a tower of cards where everything builds off of each other and there's a lot of complex stuff to consider. So my conversion was just showing them a good game, showing them that not everything needs a push button solution, and demonstrated how smoothly games can flow. Nice. Button smacked. I appreciate it. THAC0 is very esoteric for players that started in the 5e sphere of things. Yeah. They are going to look at it as ridiculous and stuff. For me, it was, by the time I got around to THAC0, it was like, okay, all these people that I respect their opinions about gaming, they say that this is not a big deal. I don't want to make this a big deal, so I'm going to try it out. And then whenever I actually tried it, because a lot of times whenever you're learning something brand new for a game, maybe it takes like a couple minutes, then you get it. And that's how it worked. Has anyone tried renaming descending armor class as vulnerability rather than armor class? That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. If you need a paragraph to explain THAC0, then it's too hard. People are throwing the gauntlet down. It doesn't matter how easy THAC0 is. It's easy. It's how easy and intuitive to the new player that you manage to wrangle to the table. Yeah, that's a lot of it. A lot of the great successes that we can have are going to be from people that take the old school stuff and then they just make it more simple to understand. Not really change how it performs, but make it simpler to understand. That's why, to me, whenever I'm looking at Osric and I'm looking at first edition, I'm looking at first edition for Gary's wisdom. I'm looking at Osric for trying to see exactly how things work or how they're supposed to work, because Matt Finch and I think Stuart Marshall's the editor in chief, but I don't know how much like stuff he did on that. But like he did the work. He's like, this is what was meant by that. You could just grab second edition, but still. Let's see. How would you explain THAC0 to new players? How would I explain it? I would say that it is basically ascending armor class, but it's armor class goes down instead of up. It's descending armor class is exactly what it sounds like. And I would just hand them the little matrix and I'd say, this may help you understand. And then I would, show them, just give them some examples of combat situations where you make those things apply. So it's like, now I have an advantage. So I'm going to add that to my roll and then compare that, based on blah, 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 etc. So I have played in DM since 1981. I miss parts of AD&D first edition, but I do not miss Save or Die. Oh man, you're killing me. Actually, I really love Save or Die, and I wish that they had more of it in a lot of. But whenever I run this game, Save or Die is not really going to be like a big factor because it doesn't fit into the type of game that I want to play. The right tool for the right job. Anybody that is an absolute purist that says like if you don't do Save or Die, then you're fucking pansy, blah blah blah. They need to get off our collective lawns, I would say. But I do think that Save or Die and stuff like that is very awesome for that old school early D&D feel with lots and lots and lots of death and lots of success. Whenever you survive that kind of game, it can be really exhilarating. One of my first games that I ran with Old School Essentials was somebody was bitten by a pit viper, and actually they were bitten by 3 pit vipers, and luckily they were a dwarf, and they were level 1, but they were still a dwarf. So that saving, that save was not that bad. And so they rolled over a 10 every time. And we were sweating fucking bullets because we thought that little dwarf was going to die. And, you don't quite get that quite as much without it. Is it necessary? Is it required? Absolutely not. Is it anti-fun? No, it's not anti-fun. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to have a game where from start to finish, you're really trying to focus on the characters, it's probably not the best. Then you may want to have something else. If you do Save or Die, then maybe it's Save or Die in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Give them some time. Now, they don't offer that in Old School Essentials. It's just Save or Die. But of course, AD&D, you have different types of poisons with different ways that they go through the body, and different ways that they interact, different side effects, and just all that kind of stuff. Not side effects, intended effects, really. So, yeah, simpler is always better. I'm going to disagree with you, Hex. So the reason I'm going to disagree with you is because I have been very impressed with weapon versus armor type to hit bonuses. I know that most people hate that shit, but I have played with it before and I have really enjoyed it. Now, here's the thing. They did simplify it. I will give you that. It was, 9 categories before, reduced down to 3: leather, leather, metal, or no armor, basically unarmored. And with that, it's a lot easier to keep track of all the different types of weapons and how they're going to affect on those things. And you know what? Well, the great thing that happens is that suddenly it makes a little bit more difference what kind of weapon you have, more so than is it a D8 or is it a D10 or that kind of thing. So stuff like that I don't always appreciate. Simpler always. Same thing with hit die equals damage. I don't always appreciate that because maybe I want the thief to have a lower hit die, but I want them to have access to every weapon. And the reason we want them to have access to every weapon is because that way they can deal about as much damage as a warrior, roughly, at least based off of their attack damage roll. And yet they are still vulnerable. Having that balance there where they have to decide, is it worth the risk? In defense of new players, THAC0 is one. Iran with the fucking takes. Of course. Y'all, I've already advertised him. He's in the Discord. He's basically an attraction at this point for people to come and talk to the Discord. Him and his hot takes on basically every system. Love the guy. Complaint I've heard going around: OSR is slow moving. Not the case. That comes down to DM and player skill / concentration. Pacing is not system dependent. Yeah, the most that you could say is that a dungeon crawl is slow moving, and even that is not necessarily the case. If you are really running it well, and then the players are running it well, the only time it's going to get very slow moving is if everybody's very meticulous and very, 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 very cautious, because maybe there is save or die and they don't want their character to die, of course. So maybe for the purpose of somebody who is used to, okay, so you enter the cave. Do you take a left or right? I take a right. Okay. Well, once you get to the end, then this, that is a bit of a different experience than, okay, so now you're going in that direction for some time. What are y'all doing while you're going? Is there anything, who's in front, formation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All they really tend to worry about is something that is a much more point crawl style approach for almost everything. So either point crawl or railroad, but I'm going to say mostly point crawl. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's just a matter of, do they have the quantum ogre situation or not? That's whenever they lose me. Give me BX over AD&D any day. Well, that's perfectly fine for me. I love both, and there are certain things from AD&D that I pilfer to bring back to BX, and then there's certain things from BX that I might want to. Not really. I really don't want to do it in that direction, but I do appreciate BX a lot just because of how fast it goes. I feel like AD&D is a little bit more for a long-term campaign that I focus on. I don't know, things are a little bit more heroic perhaps, because surprisingly AD&D is actually a lot more survivable. Thaco, I doubt Thaco would scare some people. To be honest, I see a lot of new players that are interested in OSR. What confuses them is the sheer amount of stuff. Yeah, so there's a point in time where I had considered, I had considered creating a resource on a blog site or something that would be a compilation with tutorials and stuff, with articles and with just all that kind of stuff to try and help them understand how to get into it. And just have it be like this real easy thing to get into, just to help new players get into it. But I didn't do it. I have a lot of time on my hands. It would have required me trying to get some really cool people to submit to it, so I never got around to it, but it would be good to see something that helps them out in that category, and so just making videos is the most I can do right now. In a way, us adults playing make pretend using imagination is 100% silly. How dare you? How fucking dare you? Okay. If we relate Thaco target number, all the confusion goes away. Also describe AC in ordinal terms. AC is first class, 2 is second class. It's not that hard. Okay. Yeah. That does make it a little bit more yeah, because that's why they called it that in the first place. I also think 1-minute combat rounds is silly, and even in 2E when it went to 15-second rounds, also silly. I don't think 15-second rounds are silly. I really don't. To me, so you might say, well, I can certainly run more than 30 feet in 15 seconds. Yeah, you could probably run quite a bit more than that. But are you under duress? Are you being attacked? Are you fleeing? If you're fleeing, then maybe we should consider something else. Then we look at pursuit rules, right? But if you're working your way up there, maybe have a sprint maneuver that's just for that. Of course, make the game your own. But for 15 seconds, I don't think it's that ridiculous, especially whenever you're having people move and shoot a bow 2 times. I don't think it's that bad. Spell casting. I'm not, I don't know. A minute, I kind of like, because a minute makes them understand that it is all very abstracted. Whenever you break it down into 6 seconds, there's not much there that's abstracted. And so whenever you're trying to picture this in your head, to me, it feels more like a tactical strat RPG on like a video game console where you are, everything is not really happening in real time. It's just like you're just moving the chess piece and everything. Whenever, you have stuff happening simultaneously because of initiative, because you have 1 minute rounds, it's just kind of like, well, during this duration, here's what you're able to accomplish. And this is the best way for us to measure what that kind of stuff is. Now, I will say this, it does mean that your combat durations, they get pretty long, and sometimes that can be silly. Yes. But we have to realize that that's going to exist regardless. If we look at the dungeon turn, just good old 10 minutes, is it always going to take a full 10 minutes to search an area? Probably not. Especially if we're talking about just like a very small 10 by 10 space. It might not take 10 minutes. Is it going to take that long to do to maneuver 120 feet, just to go down the dungeon a little bit further? No, probably not. But that does account for how slow you have to move in order to be cautious, and you can speed things up or whatever. But at the same time, like I said, if we can just go with the fact that yes, we're abstracting it, we're just going to have to move past it, I'm sorry, then to me the game gets better, in my opinion. Then I'm focusing more on just trying to, I don't know, just handle what's happening rather than get all concerned about that kind of thing. THAC0 is still was a way to distill an entire chart into one number. Yeah, that's true. OSR is lightning fast compared to 5e. Yeah, it is. Unless if you're doing full first edition, all the trimmings, all that kind of stuff, segments, all that kind of stuff, then I could see 5e being quicker, especially in the early levels. Later on, it's out the door. Okay. Yeah, BX does have 10-second rounds. I feel like 10 seconds is a pretty good round time. And it does feel like it's going rather quickly. 1 minute combat rounds make sense with the chainmail rules, but not with the alternate system. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why whenever I look at 1 minute rounds, I usually try to think of it more as a war game whenever we're doing that kind of stuff. That's not inherently why, but that's kind of where I've landed, and I think it's a funny coincidence. 2E had 1 minute rounds until combat and tactics. Yeah, then they had to ruin everything, didn't they? I'm just kidding. Let's see. Weapon versus armor type is ugh. Yeah, I understand that. See, I knew that there's going to be some pushback. I knew it. See, Indigo gets it. It makes those things matter a little bit more. That's one of the things I don't really care for about just hit die equals damage, is that weapon doesn't matter worth shit. But maybe that's okay with you. Maybe that's, you don't want weapon type to matter that much. Maybe you want them to have full expression of who their character is. To me, I'm like, well, it's a fucking weapon. I don't really care what it looks like, So as long as it kills something, that's all I really care about. But I don't care about character aesthetics very much. I care more about what decisions am I making in the game, in the world. How am I growing my character? How are they adapting to everything? Oh, cool. We have a 5e player. I am a 5e player, and of my group, I think only one is interested in the OSR. Where should I look to learn and possibly play in one? Well, I'm glad that you got here. So I made a video on old school. Well, okay. There are a lot of really cool people that have made videos that are great for understanding how to learn more about it. Really, if you just search OSR on YouTube, you will find a lot of really good ones. Possibly play in one. I have a Discord server. I will put the link in my description. You can absolutely join us and play in BX for free. It will not cost you anything. It is not hard to learn. We will help you learn how to play. And we'll be happy to have you. There are most of us that are in the game, we either are relatively new, we've been playing for a few years, or when I say we've been playing for a few years, I mean overall in the whole hobby, or very old school people that have been around for a long time and they tolerate us. So everybody is welcome to play. Just as Iran said. And there are other Discords as well. So I'm not going to sell them short. They are out there. Let's see. You dare. um, let's see. We're still very, very set on on the Thaco argument. You are not only doing one thing during the combat round. Yeah, that's very true. That's one thing that again, I'm not one to trash on 5e all day, but you accomplish a whole lot in 6 seconds in 5e. You don't really accomplish nearly as much in BX. BX I feel is like more appropriate for what you're dealing with usually, especially whenever you're dealing with but here's the thing, a lot of people that they'll be like, okay, in 6 seconds, or I'm sorry, in 10 seconds I was only able to swing my weapon once. Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't even think of it as blow for blow anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. I think of it as, who is starting to get the advantage. Whenever you're depleting their hit points, you are starting to gain the advantage on them. And that way, whenever you strike them down to 0, buddy, at that point, you had them on their knees and you slit their throat and they're bleeding all over the place. And unlike in some games, they're gone for good. Well, unless they have the Raise Dead spell, which I absolutely recommend stealing the rules from AD&D or anything else to make it less less of a problem. Not a problem. It's not a problem. It's whatever you want. But I like death to matter. I feel how long a round is arbitrary if it's consistent. I agree with that. People have talked about playing in, I think it was, actually, I can't remember what it was, but they're saying there was a 1 second round in some game. Maybe it was GURPS. Let's say, see now, no, people are still on the Thaco thing. Let's see. Did he just say playing combat? No, I was saying that whenever you were doing the 6 second round and you were, so pretty much whenever I play 5e, I feel kind of like that's what we're doing, because it's just there's this really strong disconnect between all of the things that they're able to do and just how everything is in an exact line as far as like how it happens. And it's like, okay, I'm going to shoot them. They're over there. And then the next person is like, okay, well, this is happening literally at the same segment, but I know that they missed and that person is not dead, so I'm going to shoot at them again. Just all that kind of stuff. There are a lot of things in the old school that treated things like that, like calling targets, saying that you're casting a spell. The whole I guess it would be Schrodinger's spell. Are you casting a spell or are you not? You're not going to know until it's your turn, for a lot of people. And I like it to be like, no, you have to commit to casting a spell before it gets to your turn. So announce it during initiative, that kind of thing. I don't even know how to handle that. Rules minutia aren't what stops new players from trying old school. Yeah, it shouldn't be. Bias towards new is better are inherent. We just need to make sure the new for these players. We're new to you. Oh, I guess you meant the old becomes the new. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. The round and turn times are really just to help the DM with time tracking. Yes, Charlotte, 100%. 100%. That's why I said we can just deal with the fact that it's an abstraction and we can just move on. So segments make me rich. See, that's what I love about role-playing game discussion, especially in the old school, because there were, people that started with BX, or people that really love BX, people that love AD&D and all that kind of stuff, people that love AD&D, but they really love second edition AD&D, people that loved AD&D, but they're like, actually, this whole part is garbage. I'm not going to use it. And so everybody has very strong opinions about all these things. And it's just fun to deal with. It just really is. Get some high quality actors doing a stream catering to current mores, but with an old school system. That'd be new. Imagine Matt Mercer, you failed your saving throw, roll a new character. Well, so high quality actors are not in fresh supply, I will say. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I know that they're actually, no, it's really not that special. There are at least some pretty decent streams like that, but they don't, with the ones with the old school gameplay, they're not voice actors. They're not professional actors or anything like that. So I'm actually going to be in one as a player coming up. That's going to be a recorded game that's edited down to remove all of the downtime. along with some other people in the old school gaming hobby. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not sure if I'm playing in the Chalt game or another game, but it should be really fun. I hope that I wasn't like not supposed to say anything, but you know, if it happens, it should be fun. But again, I'm not somebody that's interesting enough to make that kind of draw. If we could pull it off, that would be cool. But there just aren't a whole lot of those A-listers and B-listers and even C-listers that will go into that audience. The best thing that we could do is try and sell Morkborg on them, because Morkborg won a ton of steam. It got a ton of awards. People outside of the OSR were like, okay, we got to admit that that's pretty fun. That's pretty cool. So, if we could get more of that, why is my chair so low? Then we would probably have some success. BX is the easiest of all versions of D&D to learn, either D&D or an RPG in general. Yeah, it doesn't get a whole lot easier than that. I would rather have characters have several different armor classes for slashing, piercing, blunt, magical, etc. Yeah, not unlike saving throws. That wouldn't be too bad, because then you would just have to remember, especially if you for slashing, piercing, blunt, magical, etc. I would try to make it not a whole lot of categories, but it's an interesting thought. It'd be interesting to just use the saving throws, but and then just have your armor affect those saving throws. But now I'm just thinking somebody's probably going to tell me that's stupid, or somebody's already done it. I like weapon type versus armor type. I get why others don't, but I think that additional bit of realism makes the more fantastic elements more palatable. Well, look, you said the R word. People are going to get upset. So just be very careful with that. But yeah, I don't know about realism necessarily, at least from a game design standpoint. You use realism as the model, but basically what you get is just the incentive to work in different ways with the game. So all game design is all about just trying to see what you can get the players to do and what they can interact with and all that kind of stuff. And that's just the thing. A lot of times for them, if they're a fighter, the best choice that they can make all the time is, I want a long sword. It's usually the best thing that they can choose at all times. Long sword and a shield. Especially if it's a sentient longsword that's powerful and not chaotic and gonna murder me. I have DM'd over 400 hours in the last year. I am still running 3.5 for the last 6 years. There are things I missed from first edition, from second edition. I like second edition combat and tactics initiative. I think that's probably what Saxius was using in our second edition game, but it was mostly automated, because of the fact that we were doing it in Roll20. So if you can do virtual tabletop, you might be able to win them over even more easily, especially if you help them set up their character sheet. I did it all by myself. But like I said, some people are just not good at stuff like that. Motherfucker, I don't have enough money for this shit. They need to cut this shit out. Dying Earth just launched on Kickstarter the other day. I've got $100 pledged for that son of a bitch. And now we have Hyperborea 3rd edition. Damn it, Indigo. But more importantly, damn it, Jeff Talanian. All right. Well, so y'all go check out the Kickstarter, see if there is any early bird shit or anything like that. I'm going to have to get it. I'm going to have to get it. Fortunately, I have I have a paycheck coming up, so that's where it's going to go. I guess that's where it's going to go. Not all of it. I'm not that poor. I think that they said it was going to be about $70 or $80. And I don't know if that's going to count for shipping. If I hit something for 8 points of damage, that's not necessarily all from just the weapon. I might have thrown an elbow into the scrum, bit his ear, and hit him with my sword in that combat round. That's true. And that's what I like to try and, remind them, and if at all possible, describe as we're playing. I try to not forget to describe things a little bit, but whenever I go into it, I usually try to make it so, okay, so this is a little bit more active than you swing and you miss, because that's just, it may be that they just happen to, maybe they parried the blow and then you backed away before they could do a riposte or, and strike you or something. Uh, can you? All right. Well, the link cannot be posted here, but Kickstarter will make you, if it's a brand new Kickstarter, they will make you hit the search feature. So just look for Hyperborea. That's probably going to be your best thing. I miss old school declare actions in initiative low to high, resolve initiative from high to low. Changing actions is a serious penalty. Yes. Where we go. If characters actually die in Critical Role, it'd be more entertaining to me, at least. Well, Mutant, I'm going to politely disagree with you, and very politely indeed. For me, the focus is just a little bit too much on the dramatic stuff, but that's the thing. A lot of the people, they really appreciate the dramatic stuff. It is a radio play for a lot of them. Nothing wrong with that. So for me, I would still be kind of bored, personally. I would still be kind of bored. Let's say, where could we hear that edited down game, or is it a new thing? It's not out yet. It is not out yet. We're supposed to be starting to play soon, before the end of the summer. And whenever it is out there, then I will be sure to let y'all know so that y'all can check it out. You know, basically all I'm doing is showing up and playing and recording my audio and then sending it. So all the work is being done by somebody else. I'm going to be vague right now until he says it's okay for me to bring it up, and talk about it more, but I'm going to be vague about it. Actually, no, he put it on his blog. I think. Yeah. So never mind. I can talk about it. I can. So, oh wow. And now I'm forgetting the name. Death Trap. He's a friend of mine. What's wrong with me? Death Trap Games. How? I don't know why I couldn't think of it. So Death Trap Games is going to be the one who's doing it. He's putting it together. He's running the games, and well, at least I think he's running the games, and he is going to do all that editing. So he's doing a ton of work in order to make people see that, we can have a damn good time in the OSR, and but he's very specifically not trying to just reach out for the voice actor types. He wants it to be a fair representation of old school play, but with a lot of the gaps cut out, I switch the world realism with plausibility. Yeah, plausibility is usually the metric that I tend to go for, especially because people tend to be like, well, you're talking about realism, but there's dragons and stuff. And I reject that because, you understand what we're trying to say here. I'm not going to throw shade at anybody. Logical, practical feels better, etc. Yeah. Okay. I didn't enjoy... it's how a lot of Iran statements go, but he still has a lot of great points always. Okay. Neoclassical geek revival, or astonishing swordsmen and sorcerers of Hyperborea. I love those acronyms, but the authors are good gents. They are. To me, is it enough for somebody to be a good gent for me to buy something from them? Not really. I have to believe in the product. Oh, Invisible College arrived today. I have to play this game. I hope you like it. I'm really impressed with what I've seen. I will do a flip through and an impressions video with y'all probably this weekend, maybe Saturday, hopefully. If not Saturday, on Monday. No, not on Monday. Yeah, maybe on Monday, because I'm off on Monday. So I will do something because I do want people to get to see it. I'm sure somebody else has probably covered it by now, but I wanted to cover Helvexia first. Because I was kind of obsessing over it. Not that I wouldn't obsess over Invisible College, but you know what? Yeah, I think y'all understand what I'm saying. Death Traps games with friends like that. Who needs enemas? Okay, I caught up with comments. Y'all are slacking. I'm running out of things to say. I don't know where my wife is. I need to check on my food. I'm worried about her. What are y'all saying? Don't even. All right, let me see. She hadn't sent me anything, so I guess she's fine. Yeah, I guess she's fine. Well, what else? There was something else. I am going to start doing a series that is specifically targeting 5e players and modern game players, and mostly 5e players, and just trying to demonstrate all the stuff that I've been talking about in this stream, rather than just Here we go. Okay. When are you going to do Esoteric Enterprises? So I've already covered it a long time ago. It is, so I have a playlist. It's for reviews. And really, I shouldn't have called it a review because I hadn't had the chance to actually play it yet. Because I've been stuck on DCC, Old School Essentials, etc. And usually, if I haven't played it, I only call it an impressions video. But I did an impressions video over Esoteric Enterprises. I was very impressed with it. I think it's very cool. There are a lot of really neat things in it. Those are two very different games, and from a design standpoint, with a lot of things. Invisible College and Esoteric Enterprises. Esoteric Enterprises, as it's described in the book, is really it has a strong focus on underground exploration. And I mean, like sewers, it could be, you can do bank heists and stuff like that. But that feels a little bit more like in line with what you would expect from a retro clone. It has Vancian magic, but you can re-memorize if you take enough time in the middle of the day, that kind of stuff. Or you can do it with like risky Vancian casting, which I think is pretty cool. So Emmy Allen did a great job with Esoteric Enterprises. I think it's awesome. One of these days, I'll probably try and get a hard copy of it because of the fact that in the back of it, there's a lot of really great material for generating or filling out underground dungeon space and stuff like that for modern gaming. And so it's a really cool source material and system. I liked the fact that it has flesh and it has grit. I think it's called grit. So your normal HP is grit. You have flesh, which is that means you're actually being hurt. And so if you get critted on, it's going to be flesh damage. And once you get to 0 grit, you're starting to take flesh damage, and then they can instantly kill you. So there's some cool stuff in there. You're going to give an OSD campaign update. I will. Let me get back to you on that. I will. I haven't done one in a long time, but I didn't play for quite a while. So I will get to that. And there's been a lot of stuff that's happened. And I do need to announce, I guess, I probably should have done this before so people that came in would be able to hear it first. But I am changing things on the Discord a little bit. I'm making it where it's a lot more open. I'm decentralizing it. So people want to run any game they want. They can run any game they want. They just need to tell me that they want to run something and what system it is, so I can make them a section and then make it where they can be in charge of that section on the server. So no 5th edition. Hate to be a hater, but there's other places for 5th edition. So, oh my God. Kickstarter for 3rd edition Hyperborea is $120. Fuck. Is shipping included? I want to know if shipping's included. This is going to hurt. But yeah, the Old School Essentials campaign update will come soon. We've had a lot of really cool stuff happen. And as far as the shared world experience, I'm actually trying to do something a little bit more with what I had heard they used to do in the Gary Gygax region, which is kind of like, well, I played at this guy's table with this character. I'm bringing it over to this, and it's in basically different worlds almost, but really dungeons. But just where we're not so worried about keeping up with the same lore and all that kind of shit. And instead, I'm just going to grab the stuff that I've been building into the campaign world over the time and condense it into something for a private game and just do it that way. And the people that have made really cool accomplishments in the world so far, I'm going to be pulling it in. So we can run a Palladium game. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm for fun playing around with designing a simple OSR and spirit rule set, and I really like simultaneous combat rolls. I think it's really cool. Also, no hit points, straight to the fun injury table. Few rounds and few ties. That is perfectly fine. That's cool. Thank you for the best wishes. I appreciate it. Shipping not included. Damn it, that a lot of us are going to get it anyway. I don't have 2nd edition. I want fucking Hyperborea, so I might as well go for the new one. Then I can show it off and maybe get some views. Can we get a Discord invite link? Yes. Give me 10 minutes after this is down, and I will put it in the description. That is for the metal foil covers. It could be an opportunity for me to get a collector's item. It could be really great. Funds in 30 days. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So Last comment. I do think that Dan Collins's Tomb of Rahotep session for original D&D, where the players were more used to 5e, was successful. He used the risk of dying and the player freedom as selling points. That's true, but he was running that with WebDM, and WebDM is consisting of people that played AD&D. Second edition specifically, I'm pretty sure. And Jim himself, he's played Swords and Wizardry. He's played, all that kind of stuff. So, that wasn't, so as far as the players go, that wasn't, trying to win people over, but it could be an effective tool. You're right. Especially because I was one who was raised on WebDM. It's such a weird thing to say. Old school loving guy raised on a mostly 5e serving YouTube channel, but it is what it is. So anyway, that's it for today. Thank y'all for coming in. I really did not expect to have so much interaction, but I love it. Y'all are the best. And more videos coming soon. Is there any RPG that you baited me, you son of a bitch? I was about to end it. Is there any RPG that's not OSR that you are interested in? Yeah. So I mean, I have Monster of the Week, which is verboten, really, because it's powered by the apocalypse. Besom, I have Besom 4. I'm probably going to veer towards the naked version because it's lighter on rules. And I like that. I have quite a few. I did recently a video where I went over all of the systems I have, and there are several, not a whole lot, but there's several that aren't OSR. I'm very interested in Call of Cthulhu. I'm not interested in Cortex Prime Iran, unfortunately. It is not doing it for me just from appearances. So anyway, I gotta bail. My food is getting cold. Y'all have a great day.